recording the meeting chat or on Microsoft Stream. Got it. You're recording.
And then from Stream, you can publish it.
Hi, Christine.
Perfect. We'll do that. So I'm recording now.
Excellent. Cool. Hey, Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, I'm here.
Cool.
How are you, Andrew?
I'm very well indeed, Christine. Thank you.
It's good to hear.
We've got Giuseppe here as well, Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Oh, come on.
Hi, Giuseppe. How are you?
Unfortunately, I have no camera because I'm not as beautiful as Andrew, but yeah.
He's got a weird avatar, Pep. You're going to have to change that avatar, mate.
Yeah, that's my Deadpool avatar.
So we're using there's a variety. We've got a camera on the mega massive screen and a camera on the Surface as well.
It's using the laptop one, not the laptop. Was it using this one? Oh, it's using my Surface instead. That's weird.
Yeah, that makes more sense because we'll get a better angle from it. There you go.
There you go.
So I can see you guys now. So who is which?
I'm Simon.
Okie doke. That's Daniel. Nice to meet you.
I'm scruffy today.
Yeah, wearing my Walking Dead t-shirt.
It's now office uniform.
Oh, well, it's right.
It looks like Michael's jumped on the call as well. Hey, Michael.
Yes.
Hi everyone.
Thank you ever so much for taking your time to join us today. As I was just explaining to the chaps, you haven't joined us yet, so much appreciated. But we've I know you've been involved in the email conversations and really interested to have a closer look at what Andrew and Giuseppe can show us and find out a bit about Thinscale.
Sorry, I've just got one thing pinging away here. Can you just give me 1 second?
Yeah, in fact, I'm just going to go and grab myself a coffee super quick, actually.
3 sugars.
3 sugars? I'm not doing that.
There you go. Did you hear that? Simon's just refused to make my coffee the way I want it. Mainly because I want 3 sugars and he won't put 3 sugars in my coffee.
Anyway, guys, how is the implementation? Do you have the software running? Did you play a little bit with the Team Kiosk, or it's the first time that you see that connecting to a console and all?
So this, for me, I'm going in as a complete noob. Okay. So you'll have to basically walk me through it. I've not seen anything. This is my first introduction into it.
That's completely fine. Yeah.
So what are you?
That's the same for myself.
Are you presenting?
Yeah, I will be sharing my screen as soon as Simon is back and you give me the go, and then gonna go from there.
You might as well just start without him, to be honest.
Okay. That's not cool.
So Michael, Michael's just joining your company. What role is he taking over?
I'll be the technical services manager.
Very good. Brilliant. Great. And anything you're particularly looking to get out of the session today, Michael?
Not in particular, just an overview really of what it
Cool.
can't do, limitations, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, it's new to myself as well.
Okay, grand. Okay. So are we going to wait for Simon to come back, or?
Nah, get Giuseppe to start.
Okay.
That was your fault, Dan. I'm not involved in this, okay?
Yeah, it's my decision. I'll take the pain. Don't worry.
That's right. Guys, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so where I usually start my elevator pitch, sort of, so to speak, or my demo, it's by showing the infrastructure, which is it's really easy. So doesn't matter if you're running the secure remote worker or the Team Kiosk, the infrastructure in the back is always the same. So you have a web server piece, which will be installed on a Windows Server box with an IIS running. You can have potentially the console installed on the same server, or you can have a different machine which will manage the clients. And the managing console is an executable, can be installed from a Windows 7 up to a Windows 10. And then obviously you will have the clients, which is either a Team Kiosk or an SRW. I don't know, Daniel, if you are aware of the two differences between the clients, but there's slightly the same, but they perform in a different way. But I can cover that in the demo later. So what we have is, obviously, if you're running over HTTPS, you will have an SSL certificate, or if you are working inside, you can go port 80 or HTTP. And we ship a profile, which is just a JSON file, which will contain all your configuration. So I don't know, simple. Again, I will show you everything in details later. Just a quick run through, which will contain your, I don't know, VDI connector, your browser, your local application, everything related to the end client customization. It's sent via the profile, which is over the internet. That's pretty much it. So it's a really high level of infrastructure. We can go deep if you want, but as you know, Thinkiosk and SRW are Windows-only software. So it's a software-defined conversion into a thin client. Working on with the devs, moving in the near future over a multi-platform and a web console. It's not there yet, but yeah, that's the overall picture of the Thinscale suite. I don't know if Simon, I believe he did played already around with the management console and the client. Tell me if I'm wrong, Simon.
I got as far. I basically did the same thing that I do with IKEA furniture, and didn't read the manual at all. Installed all of the components. I kind of ran out of time a little bit, and I was hoping to pick it up the following day. But I got the management console installed just locally, and got the management server installed just on its own instance in a domain, and everything looked like it was working. I just didn't refer to the documentation to figure out exactly how to connect to the management console. Okay. So that's connect to the management server from the console. So that's as far as I got.
That's fine. Yeah.
And sorry, Pep, just before you go on. So Simon, do your team need an overview at all? I mean, does everybody kind of get what we're talking about in broad terms?
No one will know anything about this except me. And there's varying levels of technical say ability, but there's me who's sort of half technical, more technical sales. Dan and Christine are purely sales based, and Michael is out and out technical guru. So you've got a variety of stuff here, but these pictures look pretty enough to appeal to everyone. So if there's things that these guys don't understand or that seem less relevant, then we'll fill in the blanks afterwards. But I think the general premise as to what Thinscale is probably still needs explaining to certainly Christine and Dan, I would say.
Okay, why don't we just pause for a second and let's do a little bit of that. So guys, just so that you understand what we're about, we're a Windows-based software-defined thin client. So an awful lot of the thin clients are either in Linux or they're components of hardware. And what this is enabling us to do is to lock down Windows endpoints and then make better use of the asset value of the endpoints. So it's particularly helpful when people are wanting to do, for example, WVD pilots. You can sweat the assets, you can get more out of them, and also you can roll them back easily. We have two versions of it. You have a corporate lockdown version, which is called Thinkiosk, and you have a switchable component, which is called Secure Remote Worker. That's designed more for personal machines, but so that you can lock them down temporarily, but then actually release them back in so that they can be used in a personal environment.
Yeah, Andrew, so, and just to translate that into what some internal conversations we've been having. So yes. This came about because of a couple of projects that Dan and I were looking at, and we work with Stratodesk very closely, who for much of a muchness with iGel, slightly different product, but we're talking about a Linux-based thin client, which is installed on instead of Windows.
Yeah, it will replace the OS
Yeah,
with the
exactly.
Strato OS.
Totally wiping it. So there's advantages to that we would certainly tout, as that's a core product for us. But the reason that I was looking into Thinscale in the first place is that there are quite a few very key, and one that you just mentioned there, Andrew, use cases that just can't be covered, or where we would not be selling the right thing to our customer by pushing them down something installed on bare metal. And I think the two products that you talk about serve some very interesting use cases that we really struggle to adequately cater for, and it's that's really our route in, is to try and find out if we can tick the boxes with those.
So the use cases, just to sort of follow on from what Simon has just said, the use cases we're finding are particularly where, for example, people want to retain legacy apps locally. And we have a variety in local government, in healthcare, and in finance, where people need to be able to access local apps that they can't translate into the VDI. So that's one instance. The second is around particularly the use of Teams. We used to refer to it as unified communications, but it's becoming more pointed around Teams, where quite often in the Linux setup, Teams is simply ceasing to function. And I've got a number of resellers, and in fact Microsoft itself, who have got existing customers where Teams is just not functioning. And equally, where people are wanting to use the bandwidth appropriately, there is a real challenge with having that run on the VDI. So if you're using, and Simon, the example you put through to me was 4K webcams wanting to operate at 1080p and using Zoom, and there's just no way that you can do that on the VDI. So this is where we've got a real advantage, because you can actually run it effectively locally, make the most of the power locally, and put it up. And then the third thing we're finding is quite often companies are finding the ecosystem is changing more rapidly, and if people are managing Linux environments, they've got to they're finding it's difficult to actually keep the whole thing up to date and make the changes so that everything runs. And we've got customers who are finding that's creating an issue, so they went to Linux and now have come back to us. So that's those are the sort of broad use cases.
Yeah, that's one that I would talking in Linux circles, you'd use the opposite argument for. So it's interesting hearing that the same argument can be applied in both instances. And I'm sure.
Go on, Simon.
And I'm sure a lot of it is particular cases, how customers use it, what manufacturers are doing, that type of stuff.
Correct.
But,
it was in that case was Gulfstream. And for them, it was critical that there was a separation between users on device, because they had people inside airplanes, and the Linux devices were not separating the data between the two users and leaving data exposed from one user to the next one.
Okay.
Well, one thing I would like to add on top of what Andrew said, Simon, and you can confirm this one or not, but think about, especially you mentioned Stratodesk. You install Stratodesk, you wipe your OS. What if you want to go back to that OS? You can't, because it's gone.
Yeah.
While with the ThinkKiosk or the SRW, because we run on top of the OS, if tomorrow you decide that, okay, Thinscale or ThinkKiosk is not the software that I want to go ahead with, you simply uninstall the software and you still have your OS there intact.
Yeah, I think USB, you can boot from USB, which I think is the tool that both iGel and Stratodesk tend to use for that. But I guess the premise is it's a completely different premise in reality.
Yes.
So it's a competing argument in that Stratadesk, if you want Stratadesk, then you want to do away with Windows. You don't want
Exactly.
anything
Yes.
to do with it.
Exactly. Yes.
And want it gone.
That's right.
So,
That's
This one
exactly it.
is a conversation when you talk with Apple lovers and Android lovers. Android for the Android lovers is the best, while Apple is the best. It's exactly the same conversation. You can tackle that use case from different angles, and you might have different views. But at the end of the day, it's just down to what use case you're trying to tackle, what performance you try to achieve, what functionality you want to retain, and which one you want to stay away from.
And I think, Simon, that's what we're finding. People often are having both and using one for one use case and one for another.
Yeah, and I think that's really where we're looking at it. I mean, I kind of naively have always come from the school of thought, which has lent itself more to the Linux side of things, where get rid of Windows, it's just a management pain in the bum. But actually, you need it for quite a lot of things. The 4K stuff, being able to actually run applications locally, stuff like that. And I think those types of use cases, you're bending the rules, or you're getting poor performance, or you're just going to not be able to do it if you try and do it down the Linux route. So for us, it was a bit of a revelation, actually. I was kind of like 4 or 5 ops that we've really struggled with, just sort of like, this would absolutely be perfect for it. So I think that the distinction is there, and it's just understanding how to best categorize, or to understand the criteria for that we would apply to understand which op goes here and why we might want to pick one solution over another.
Okay, so guys, does that give you, Christine, Michael, Dan, does that give you enough of a sort of introduction as to what we're about generally?
My side, yeah.
Yeah. Just one thing to add
definitely.
Is the idea is that you install this. You may have said this already, so I apologise if I'm covering it. But you install this on Windows, and it will look like a thin client in the same way that Stratadesk looks like a thin client. It's just got the power of Windows underneath that you can take advantage of if you need to.
Michael, did you have a question, Michael?
No. Just it covered off what it's about, and very similar technologies to you, like Simon was saying about iGel and Stratadesk. So yeah.
Perfect. And Christine, you're happy?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Good.
I think, guys, it will make easier if you see the actual software. So if you have any doubts, that will be easier just to showcase the product. And then again, if you have any doubts or questions, feel free to ask.
Off you go, Pep.
I will move my Windows 10 virtual machine here. So as you can see, Simon, I did my homework. So you have your branding image. You have
always brownie points. You've got the color scheme and everything. Good job.
And Zoom. And Teams.
As you can see, this one here are local. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. I want to explain that to Michael and Christine. So this one, guys, it's a software, our software that will be installed on the Windows machine as soon that the user will boot up the machine. If it's a domain joined machine, they will use their domain credential. As soon they will write or they will type their credential, they will be presented with this UI. They won't have access to the OS. They won't have access to any underlying, let's say, sort of functionality. So there will be no control panel, no C drive, no command prompt, nothing. Every action will be performed within the Thinkiosk, so which is the Thinkiosk desktop, which is this one. You can switch between application and browser, and for the happiness of the guys, I already branded the browser with your website, so you can present.
Just for absolute clarification, just want to make sure. So Dan, Christine, just where your UI starts and the VM starts or ends, if you like. So you're running Workstation from the looks of things.
Yeah, it's a vSphere. Yeah.
Yeah. So the top 2 lines basically is not what you would see if you logged in. Everything under that is what you would see in the screen.
Can you go back, Pep? Can you take them from the login?
Yeah, that's it. So this is.
I just made full mode, so it's easier.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So this is essentially what someone would look at when they turn their machine on.
Just to clarify, Simon, and you might know this one, I have the taskbar enabled, but if you don't want the taskbar, you can simply switch that off.
Okay.
But it's easier if you have, let's say, multiple application. Let's say I launch Team, I can minimize Team, launch my VDI, I can still access the local apps, even when the VDI is on in full mode. Obviously, if it's in full mode with dual screen, you can move your VDI on a different screen and still have access to the Thinkiosk. But it's an option that you can simply switch on or off. Again, we are really down to user choice or admin choice. We never ever, and I will say ever, enforce something on the Thinkiosk unless you enable that on the profile, which is coming from the management console. Again, guys, I will explain that later, but I just wanted to show you the overall. So again, every single button, text, color scheme, branding, icons is fully customizable by you guys, so you can either hide them or show them. Minimize the ribbon so you can potentially have an even bigger workspace. You can have the ribbon smaller, just smaller version of the icon, so a little bit shrinked, sort of speaking. And all these buttons here are let's say, are enhancing, or they're just working upon Windows functionality. So if I go and click the audio, I will be calling the audio applet from Windows. If I will be calling the date and time, it's exactly the same date and time for Windows. We have our own display panel, because since Windows 10 1903, they moved the display from the control panel to the settings, and we had to decide our own, but it's there. Let me check. I think I have disabled that. Yeah, I have disabled the option, but I'll show that later, Simon. Actually, I can do by simply giving you an hyper mode of the Thinkiosk with loads of apps.
Yeah.
But if I click the display settings on this other machine, you will see that the display is different. So I can scaling, DPI scaling. Obviously, that will be reflecting the highest scaling that the VMware supports. This case 125. If you have a 4K, TV or screen, you can go 175, 200 or whatever. I don't have two monitors, but again, let's see if I can launch my local Thinkiosk. If I have installed it, I do. So I have 3 monitors on my machine. I want to give you the, every single scenario that you might encounter. Let's see. Thinkiosk is. The problem with running Thinkiosk locally is that it's blocking everything that I have on my NUC.
Your own worst enemy.
But let's see if I can do it.
It shows it works, if nothing else, I guess.
Yeah, true.
Parallels in there as well.
I don't see it. But anyway, you get the idea, Simon. If you have multiple screen, you can extend, duplicate on 1 and 3, duplicate on 2 and 3, or whatever. Obviously, keyboard and mouse, exactly the same as Windows does. Shut down, restart, and log off. I don't think I need to explain that.
Yeah.
We have 6 different languages. So if you have multiple multi-language sort of office space, you can decide which language Thinkiosk can be presented. The icon is to unlock Thinkiosk and access the underlying OS. So in case of troubleshooting, I don't know, you need to install a printer driver, you need to change a proxy, you need to change RAM or whatever, we'll give you the option to unlock the Thinkiosk, type the password, launch the Explorer, and you will see your normal OS back.
So that would be someone doing it locally, actually on the client device. Can the same be done without having to either VNC or even better, can it just be done in the background without the user being aware of it happening?
Yes or no, Simon. So you can unlock the Thinkiosk from the management console, but if you want to troubleshoot, you can either remote control from the management console, but it's not a full remote control, it's a shadow window. So wherever you see on the end user, you will see on the management console, but the user is aware. You cannot do that one in the background. It depends between, the states has a different law, us with GDPR, it's privacy and, user policies.
I guess what if you wanted to install an app, and you didn't need to remote on necessarily to do it, you wanted to push it out via an MSI or something like that. Could you do that without the user's knowledge?
Again, yes or no. So you can do it silently, but you will end up, if you're launching, for instance, if you're deploying our Thinkiosk version 2.1, for instance, right? That's just a number, and you do it silently, Thinkiosk UI might restart. So the user, even though the user doesn't know that an application is being installed, the UI will be closing down.
Okay.
But if you're deploying, I don't know, a new Zoom package, you can potentially install Zoom silently in the back without restarting the machine. When they launch Zoom, the user won't even know that it's at Zoom 1.2. It's already in the back for them. But yes, you can do. It depends of what option. You can do MSIX/I blah, 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 Q true or whatever, or you can do a force reboot. But yes, you can do it.
So in that instance, is there a provision for pinging a message onto the client screen saying your system's about to go down because we're doing something to it?
You will see. So I'm actually gonna do a quick side by side, guys, with the management console. So if I put this on here and let's launch the management console.
I'm just trying to think of as many awkward questions as I can.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Feel free. So let's say I'm doing an installation, but I just launch a refresh profile. OK, if you're installing something, you will see something up in like this one.
OK.
So
yeah,
the installation of the deployment of a package doesn't happen straight away. And it's because if you're working on something important, we don't want to shut down the system. They will kill you or they will kill me. So we have a sober checking in place where you can either install the client or the package when the UI is launched, when the UI is running, or when you do a refresh profile. So when you do a refresh before the Thinkiosk UI starts, you will see a message say Simon.exe requires installation. Do you want to install it now? Yes or no? If you do no, nothing will happen. The Thinkiosk UI will show. If you do yes, we will do the installation and then the UI will show. And depends if you have a restart or not, the machine will restart or not. But yes, you can do it. So I have an example these of packages, which I use as a demonstration. So obviously I have different version of my own, but I have an Adobe Flash Player, Citrix HDX, a receiver, a workspace, Firefox. So you can do wherever you want, or you can deploy wherever you want using our management console. We have a package creator also, so it can guide you towards any different settings, or if you want to check for a registry key, or if you want to check for a file, if it exists, if the file version is something, then the one that is installed. You can do sort of test to make sure that the package that you are deployed is newer than the one that you are installing.
Okay.
Sorry, no, it's newer than the one you have already installed. But if there is no package, then you don't even need a test. You can simply deploy the MSI directly. But again, if I open, for instance, one as an example, workspace. So you can see here I have different checks. So name, you can write there bananas, apple, strawberry, doesn't really matter. It's just a naming. The version is the one that you should use. So if you're deploying the package, the seed receiver 194141, you need to make sure that the MSI that you deploy or the exe that you deploy match the version that you are setting it up. So that's the exe, that's the location of the executable. What I do here is I create a registry. It's not a registry, but I create a naming to test if the registry key that I'm evaluating against, it's there. So if you go to this location, the ICA client has a version key, and if the version key is less than the one that I am deploying, the package will be installed silently via VBS script.
Okay, got it.
That's all. So as you said, can I do it silently? Yes, you can. True. It means you restart, and reboot required I have checked. So after installation, the machine will be restarted.
Okay. And
but if you uncheck that, then it won't, unless the MSI or the exe that you are deploying require a restart anyway. So we cannot stop that.
So there's obviously scripting functionality in there as well.
Correct.
Which looks quite handy, I guess, if you've got people who want to go beyond just installing an app.
Oh, you can do a lot of checks. So let's say I think this one is I'm checking. So I'm copying an image. Apologies, guys. And I check if the folder exists, which is called temp2, then do nothing, then quit the script. Else, if the temp doesn't exist, I copy the test PNG to the temp2, and then I execute the script. So you can do wherever you want.
Okay, that's cool. Very flexible.
I do a quick customization of the profile because you said you couldn't manage the connectivity between a client and a server, right?
Yeah, I think it was more that I just got as far as having installed all of the components, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was very tired.
Okay, gotcha.
And I had the console on my system and the management server installed, and I couldn't. I basically just didn't open the documentation to figure out how to connect it. I tried typing it in. I could see that there was a URI, and it was suggesting that I had to have a particular tail on the URI to connect to it. So I checked IIS, and I could see that the app had been installed correctly.
Quick question, Simon. How much time do we have? Do you have time? Do you have any other meetings?
Well, we've got until 3. However, I would say stuff like that is going to go in one ear and out the other.
I've got to leave at 2:45.
Yeah. I think we need Pep. We can come to the more detailed stuff like that at the back end. Let's focus on everybody's time so that we get the main stuff done by 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're sort of certainly piquing my interest in a lot of ways. So I've got loads of questions that I'd like to follow up with.
That's
I'm
fine.
really sorry. I'm going to have to take this call. My wife's rung me up.
Go ahead. So Dan and Michael and Katrina and Christine, sorry. So if I want to modify something on the end client, so let's say I want to change the title of my end client, what I will be doing, let's say I have Till Technology Thinkiosk demo. I will remove the Thinkiosk demo. I will save the profile and simple task, refresh profile. You will get a message on the endpoint. If I say OK, the UI will restart. The machine doesn't need a restart. The machine doesn't need another boot. As soon as I get the new profile, you will see that the title has changed. So no dual boot or no restart needed unless you're changing something that requires a restart. But if you want to do a UI customization, you can simply refresh the profile, and the later profile will be deployed on the client.
Cool.
I don't know, Dan, maybe you will be the guy that will manage the management console, but what we have here is we have folder structure. So you have devices, profiles, site. I'll go through everything in more details, but as you can see, my W10 Infinity, it's within the production Thinkiosk. The production Thinkiosk has a profile attached. Every machine that that belong to that folder will get exactly the same configuration. You don't have to create multiple profiles. It's only one for wherever or how many machines you have in the folder. Same user experience, same settings, same applications, same VDI, nothing else. Simon, from your email, I saw you are interested in the WVD.
Absolutely, yeah. Hot topic for us.
Show the login, Pep.
So this Thinkiosk has a WVD ready. So I can show you. You will see your Microsoft authorization. Hopefully it's the right one. Yeah. So click yes. Then I have my test WVD. I can auto launch that session if I want. So I don't have to click the icon, but I didn't want to just to show you that I have the option. But if I click my icon, my WVD is launching, and you are within a Windows 10 multi-session mode.
So this is the future.
This is the future. The future is now because we have it.
It's here with us.
I don't know what's your view around WVD, especially if you have a Windows 7 machine, but since I believe 2 weeks ago, we are WVD ready natively from the software. You don't have to do anything else rather than having the RDP client installed, which comes already with Windows 10.
Yeah, I think the sheer aggression that Microsoft are going in with the WVD argument means that undoubtedly the next year is going to see a real change in
A lot.
a massive move to
Simon,
cloud.
what we're seeing is them taking extremely aggressive positions with their largest customers, particularly around some of the licensing components.
Yeah,
they're clearly going to do everything within their power to drive people to this.
They don't want people on AWS, I think, at the end of the day.
Correct.
They're going all out to
Absolutely.
get everyone onto Azure.
Exactly.
and-
WVD on Azure.
Yeah. Why not weaponize Windows, the oldest asset? So,
Yes.
it makes perfect sense, and it's going to be an interesting period of time over the next 12 months or so to see what the uptake is, and to see how everyone else, your Citrix, VMware, or the broker technologies fit into it.
And they're starting to introduce us now because I think they see us as a way of accelerating that take up.
Simon, this one, I just moved over to the other Thinkiosk because this one is the other way that you can access your remote desktop. So as you can see, I have a storefront farm. So again, we support Citrix, we support VMware, and we support WVD or on RDSH, normally the way it is. So you have the differentiation of local application on the right-hand side, remote apps that are coming directly from your storefront or from your VMware Horizon, and you have the desktops. I don't have any VMware connector enabled, but if there was one, you would have seen a different icon, which I believe it's set up in the Secure Remote Worker. So I will show you the Secure Remote Worker after with the VMware. But
so I assume that you guys can just publish whichever receiver is available from the vendor. So you're up to speed on, Workspace 1 and the Citrix Workspace as much as a Windows the client would be.
Correct. So this one is a Workspace 19.4, which I believe I don't think is the latest, but I think it's 2 versions from the latest. But the answer is yes. There is no lockdown for us, no whatsoever. So you can run wherever you want.
Okay. Yeah, and always a couple of steps ahead of the Linux crew.
Absolutely.
Before I sign out, so I wanted to show you that if you have a multi-monitor situation, you can move this session in monitor 2 or screen 2, and you can still access your local apps in monitor 1. So the case of Teams, I can launch Teams, which is using the resources on my local PC. Obviously, I don't have the login, and if I want to have a call, I can launch Zoom. You give me the URL, you sign in. You have the video call or the whatever call that you want to use. Again, using the resources of the Thin client rather than using the resources of the VDI.
Okay, and this was the use case you were asking as
well, and I mean, basically, on the back of this conversation, I'm going to ask for your assistance to see if we can set a device up with the potential customer's logo on. Very, very... should we say lavish? Very like finance company.
Prestigious.
Simon, it's easier than you think, believe it or not. So the Thill technology branding is just a simple image that I called logo and resides on the client. So if on my client, I have a temp folder with a logo PNG, so the image has to reside physically on the client, but assuming the image is there, then you can simply give me the path and then we will match the wallpaper. For Teams is a little bit weird because it's an app data application, but assuming you specify the local app data, you can go Microsoft, Teams, current Teams.exe, then we map the icon for you. And Zoom is the same. So Zoom has an app data location, Zoom being Zoom.exe. Simple as that.
Sorry, I'm going to mute my phone. I should have done that the first time.
That's fine. Don't worry. And from a browser point of view, if I go back here, I only have access to one particular website. And
that's the only one you need.
And if I click it, if I type it,
very good.
My URL
it's really
address
good. I love
bar,
the picture.
is blocked. So I cannot go and say I want to check my Facebook page or I want to go to Google. It's blocked to my tiltech.co.uk.
Okay.
But again, we don't block this one by default. So if you see the management console and I show you the profile and we go to secure browser, I have the option disable address bar editing. You don't have to, but you know, I don't think I have to explain this one. If I have this on hide home button, then the home button will disappear. So every single button. Yes.
Can you have it so that either you have the bar enabled, but certain sites you can't get on, or you can have it so that you can only go on 4 sites or something like that?
No,
so do you have like an approved or not approved list?
So yes. So if I go, let's say I want to go to Google.
Yeah.
And I do HTTPS www HTTPS. Oh God, can't even type. So I add Google here, okay? And then on my URL filtering, I enable whitelist and blacklist. So I can add a rule name called Google. And I said, I want to wildcard everything that starts with Google or Goog, okay? So if I have this option, I save the profile and I refresh it. So now if I go to the browser, now I have the option to go to Google because I enable more links. But if I click on Google, it's open because I didn't block it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show you the customization. But then if I go to the rules and then I block it, then you won't be able to run or launch.
If you search for a page and then click on it, what happens? So
you can't type.
In the search bar in the middle of the page.
So obviously, Simon, having Google open is a bad practice, but let's say I want to see a tiger image and I go image. You can still browse everything, right? Because it's open.
But it won't let you go to those pages because is it blocking on a domain basis or is it?
Correct.
So
if
you searched Facebook on Google, then clicked on the link,
you will be able to go there because the option is there.
Okay.
But you were asking, Dan, can you lock down? So you can lock down specific things and you can lock down Google.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you could have it. So if an organization has 4 things that they use, you could actually have it so that you can access all 4, but you can't access Google.
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct. So I think I have this option enabled on my other profile. Let's see.
Yeah.
So HTTP. Come on, give me something.
Well, yeah, you can edit the web page there, so you can the thing.
Correct. This one is still open. I need to check the profile, guys, because I don't remember
that kind of answers what I was after.
But you get the idea. So let me see if I have the dev domain. Should have some filtering. So enable. Okay, I have Facebook blocked on this machine. So let's open the other web page, the other Think Kiosk. If I go to Facebook, I'm not typing. And I click it, it's blocked.
Awesome.
It's just down to different rules, Simon. So I didn't have that ready, but
so you can either have it open and lock down certain ones, or
Correct.
only allow access to certain ones.
Yeah, whitelist or blacklist. Yeah. Yes, I guess if you block Facebook, then that's 50% of the working day for the public sector gone, really, isn't it?
Facebook.
But yeah, for instance, this one I'm only blocking facebook.com. If you go to facebook.ie, Facebook redirects anything to .com. But if I have reddit.com.ie.it.org, by using the wildcard reddit.everything,
just regular expressions.
Exactly. So this one, for instance, I have a regular expression to block Hong Kong. So if you type Hong Kong on Google, whatever, it will be blocked. But you get the idea. It's simple, really simple.
Awesome. Cool.
To come back to your question about startup scripts and login scripts, you can even do something more, harder or more powerful, sort of speaking, you can do wherever you want with the startup script. The startup scripts we run in the context of the system. The login script we run in the context of the Thinkiosk user.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do something powerful, use the startup script. It looks difficult. It looks, strange, but it doesn't do anything. What I did, I just changed the management URI from one server to the other one. That's all.
So, I mean, scripting is a little bit above my station, but it's his VB script, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So what it does here, I check the path. If the path exists, and if it's 32-bit, then I have to go to, if it's not 32-bit, then I have to go through WOW64 because it's a 64 machine. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then what I do, I'll check if the management URI exists. I will replace that one with my console, which is the server URI that you were looking after.
Yeah.
And then the management username and password, it's the site username and password. I don't know if you use the site. So the site is used for deploying machines into a specific folder. When you will have the chance to install the Thinkiosk, by default, if you're not using any site, the machine will be sent into the Fold device folder. And then, assuming this one was your machine, right? You have to manually move the machine to the folder that you want. By using a site, you can see if I use this site, I have a target folder set, which is the production Thinkiosk. So during installation, you will give me the management URI, you will give me the username and password of this site, and the new machine will be straight away redirected within the folder.
Yeah, I got it.
And
cool.
This one is useful if you have WDT tasks, SCCM tasks, where you can just write down silent installation commands saying MSI exec /I Thinkiosk 5.7 dash management URI HTTP, comma, management password, Simon, management username, Simon /Q. You don't have to do anything else because you know that by default that machine would be redirected in the device, in the folder that you want.
Excellent.
Do you want to turn this on yours? Because I've got to go.
Okay. Yeah.
Join the meeting before I leave.
The other thing I wanted to show you guys before you go is the secure mode worker mode. So as Andrew was mentioning, the secure
just one sec, Giuseppe. Dan's got another commitment that he's got to shoot out the door for. So if you just pause for a second, I'll drop out and I'll join back in on my system.
Cool.
Of course, yeah.
I will. I'll look forward to hearing the rest of this on the recording. So thank you.
Great.
Very good.
Thanks
Cheers,
for
Dan.
showing up. Thank
Cheers.
you, Simon.
Michael, any questions coming up for you?
Yeah, I do have a couple.
Okay.
Particularly around sort of pushing out changes and installing apps and that sort of thing. Can you sort of schedule that to happen overnight? Do a wake on LAN from the management console, install all the software changes, etc., and then shut it down?
Not yet, Michael. So we are working on that. But what you can do is have different settings, which will make the end result the same. So what you can do is, let's say you want to deploy a package X. You install the package. That package requires a restart, but you don't want to restart the machine, right? What you can do, if you go to the power, doesn't really matter what profile. If you go to power option, you can say restart the machine at wherever. So before the installation, before the restart, the installation will finish, and then when you come back in the morning, you will have a fully, let's say, patched with the package that you deployed before.
Okay.
So again, it's not natively within the software package deployment, but you can achieve the same by adding an extra settings in the profile.
Sure. And also, when you were signing on to the WVD,
yes.
Do you have single sign-on integration or integration with Azure Active Directory?
It's not even there yet, but where is my VM? This one. So what you do, you need to create, it's all PowerShell based now, but you have to create the tenant, and you have to sync your on-prem Active Directory with your Azure Active Directory. So in fact, the first time you log into the WVD, you might need to log in twice, because thereafter, you need to sync those credentials between Azure and on-prem. But as soon as those credentials are in sync, you need to only log in once. That's all. But again, all the Azure synchronization, or whatever they call the creation of the tenant, the creation of the rule, has to be done by you. We don't do it, obviously.
Okay. And on the containers for the devices, you were talking about the different sites determine where they get put. But you were talking about providing a URL and a username and password. So when you're installing the kiosk or the other options, is that a manual process? Can you automate that at all?
It's both. So again, we have huge clients that just deploy a single MSI, and they package that MSI around the Citrix receiver, for instance, the VMware client. They package around any Adobe Connect, especially if they're working from home. They don't allow TeamViewer, so they package together everything in a 300 megabyte sort of installation files with all the silent command already pre-embedded. So the user, they have to click, let's say you have a tilt.exe, they will click tilt, they will install the receiver, the Team Kiosk, and Adobe Connect or Teams. Nothing else. They don't have to type any username and password or any URI, because it's already there.
Okay, perfect.
But either way, if you want to, maybe for double checking the user, you can simply connect with any way you want, and you manually type the URI and the username and password if you want. But it can be automated if you want.
Okay, perfect.
Before I move to the secure remote worker,
just a question. So we're talking Windows, which is a very broad collection of versions and technologies.
Yeah.
So are there any differences in the way that it would be installed, or any management considerations that need to be taken into account when you're
Zero.
working? Okay.
Zero difference.
Good.
The only difference it's on a Windows 7. So if you're installing 5.7 or whatever version of the SRW on Windows 7, there is a security patch that you have to have installed. But if I open my knowledge base on the requirements, you have a link where you can simply go and download the service pack or whatever the name is, and make sure that it's installed on that box, which is this one here.
Okay.
But rather than that, there will be no difference whatsoever.
Cool. So I guess that actually makes it one of the things we find not that often, but there's with Stratodesk, for instance, the hardware's the thing. So we have to make sure that the hardware is going to work with the Linux kernel and the drivers. So there's about 17 different builds, and sometimes there's bits of hardware that don't work. But I guess if it's got Windows on, it's going to work in this case, really.
Correct.
So 100% of compatibility, which is awesome.
Simon, tell me something. What kind of Windows you have in your organization? What different version do you have? One of one, like 10 of one, or a mix of them?
Windows 10. So yeah, we are basically early adopters of everything. We like to be as close to inside a channel if we can. We'll experiment, go beta, and we like new shiny toys as soon as they come out, basically. So okay. We would be Windows 10 and the latest build as soon as it's released.
Okay. Yeah, no, we are not OS dependent as long it's a Windows. So we do our normal R&D and testing from Windows 7, 8, 8.1, 10 LTSC, 10 LTSB, home hen. So everything will be fine. If you have only one version, then you can go home and sleep at night because you know it's going to work.
Okay. So one other question then, which is quite relevant at the moment around Windows 7. Does this nullify the requirement for security patching and whatnot, or is there still a strong argument? We bump into this with Windows embedded.
I know where you're going. So
Yeah.
I'll give you a really funny analogy, Simon, okay? Let's say you are in your house and you have 3 windows, okay? You can only open 3 windows, but nobody's gonna stopping you getting a hammer and open a hole in your house, right? You can still access something outside those 3 windows, but because you have Thinkiosk and the functionality that you perform on Thinkiosk are restricted, you get less exposed on potential patches that Windows doesn't provide anymore unless you're moving towards a WVD. But in your case, let's assume you are here. You have Zoom, Teams, and one browser. Okay, so let's say you are here. There is nothing that they can do, and if you break out this, please let me know. We might give you 50 license for free because it's unbreakable. As a normal user, at least you have if you are a super hacker, fair play to you. You can go to the DEF CON, but if you perform standard home user, corporate user with Office 365, Zoom, and whatever, there is no way a user can break outside the Thinkiosk. Okay.
So they're not going to be able to run an exe that's going to cause any damage, for instance.
Exactly. But to give you an extra layer of security, what we implemented, I might show you with the dev domain because there are rules in place. We have what we call endpoint security. So again, we can cover the endpoint protection as well. So we can check the state of the machine. So antivirus is up to date, Windows is up to date, firewall is okay, anti-spyware is up to date. You can patch Windows with our management console. You don't need any external tool. You can create firewall rules with our management console. So you can disable every single Windows rule that applies on that machine and only apply the rules that are applicable to your application or your network requirements, and disable everything else. But if you want to have an extra layer of security, we have application execution prevention and service execution prevention. What those things does, I don't know if you ever play with Procmon, but you see Procmon, you can create rules based on, I don't know, registry key or program name. What we do, we use exactly the same sort of adding rules, but we monitor the execution of the application. So let's say you have only the receiver and I don't know, Zoom, right? You don't need nothing else from a local point of view, from a thin client point of view that needs execution on that machine. What you can do, you can block everything, but just allow I have Edge as an example, but you can allow Edge. So what I do here, I'll check for the Microsoft Edge certificate thumbprint, which it's solo. Only Edge or Microsoft Binary have the certificate thumbprint. If something change, the certificate won't match, then the application won't execute.
Okay.
Exactly the same things apply with the services. In the case of a keylogger, okay, and this one is more applicable for a secure remote worker point of view, because I'll show you that later. On a secure remote worker mode, you are already always in a personal computer mode, and then you switch, so you don't know what happens before. But with the service execution and application execution, you can enforce, or you can stop, I should say, external or third-party application outside the corporate environment. So what I mean,
key logging and stuff like that. Are there any restrictions around privacy laws and things like that about having the functionality of key logging, for instance, embedded in the application, or is it something that would rely or sit solely on the person who is responsible for administering it?
I'm not aware of that, Simon. I'm honest with you, because I don't know if there will be, especially in Europe, there will be. I think it's against the law to log.
Yeah.
Unless you have, what's the name of that device that matches, or not the speedometer. It matches the way you type your password to verify if it's you or not. I can't get the name
right,
now.
I see. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Unless
do.
you have that device externally, then there is nothing we can do. But again, as a law, I don't think.
But I suppose point is it's it's not like we're losing out. It's just the features there, I guess, if you wanted to use it in places where the law's perhaps a bit more vague.
Say that again, mate, because I think I've lost you there.
If, for instance, so the key, just to understand the key, sorry, my laptop's just about to die, and the key logging functionality, you would use this, I guess, with the secure remote worker app would be the better use case for this, right?
Yes.
The point I was making was it's something you can choose to use, but if the law is going to prevent you from doing so, then just don't. It's not like
correct. Again, Simon, like there is nothing enforced, so you can have rules to stop execution, but if they're not, then the OS will run normally.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want me to cover, guys?
I think, to be honest with you, there's so much to play with there that I want to get it set up and want to get playing with it. To be honest with you, what I do want to do is as soon as we can is get a piece of hardware for this customer in question and do what you've done with us there, get their logo stuck on it and the apps that we know they want to use, and take a device in and not tell them it's running Windows and see what they think of it.
There will be no problem if you send me an email with information about company name, potentially the URL where I can steal the branding. You give me the application they might need to use or they might use already. I can do exactly the same as I did for you guys. There is no problem whatsoever. It's 10-15 minutes job.
Excellent, cool. Yeah,
obviously I'll give you an insight, Simon. If there is a specific application that I cannot download or I can't get my hands on, I will simply create a fake icon with the name of the application as a showcase. Yeah. But if we organize this call, you will be there anyway, so you can simply say that.
Yeah, I think that the flexibility to do this customization is the sort of stuff that we like, because we're small guys and we like going in. People always have a smile on their face when they're greeted with someone who's going to taking the care and attention to actually customize the demo for their purposes. So I think an organization like the one in question, who wants Zoom and Teams, if we go in with that, I think we've got a strong argument, and there's quite a compelling reason for them to explore using it. I do have one question though. So you guys talk about your product very abstracted from the hardware, and we obviously, with the thin client operating systems that we work with, we hate it, but they are intrinsically linked to hardware quite often. So you'll have a thin client with X on or blah blah blah, and customers just can't get away from the concept of a thin client being a thing, both the software and the hardware as a single entity. And we always try and make the distinction that there's hardware and there's software. But what I want to know is, do you have people who use these on thin clients? Is this a common use case for you? And do you have any case studies or anything like that we could look at where people have stuck this GUI on top of an actual purpose-built thin client?
We do have customer using thin clients. I don't know the exact model of those thin clients, but if you give me some time, I might be able to get some information out of it.
Sure. Okay.
I don't know. I don't believe if we have use case about running thin kiosk on thin client, but I can ask Andrew to look for it.
Okay, that'd be interesting.
Sorry guys, I have another call. Would you mind if I leave and maybe if you are still around, come back? Because I have a call with
it's gone past 3, so I've got to shoot off. Andrew, I can see that you're talking, but you're on mute at the moment. Just let him come off mute.
Yeah, sorry. I was wondering why nobody was listening. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the bulk of our examples, Simon, are on where people have got existing fat PCs that they're converting to thin clients. That's the largest example. But we do, as Pep says, we do have some examples on thin clients. Happy to look those out and pass them over to you.
Yeah, I think
Simon,
we might be able to, for us, and the types of opportunities that we're presented with, I think we might be able to open up an avenue which is perhaps unexplored territory for both of us in reality. So the device that sat next to me is something which we sell for LG exclusively in the UK, and this is actually what the customer was looking for. It comes bare metal, 38-inch powerhouse, all-in-one device, but it's billed as a thin client. It's got 64 gig solid state device, but it's got nothing on. It's got nothing on it. So we can either put a thin OS on it, or we can put Windows. We would much prefer to put Windows with a thin client GUI over the top that can be managed in the right way. So I think it'd be interesting to sort of try out a few use cases and chuck a few things in front of customers to get some feedback.
Yes. And I think particularly, I could get it totally. And I think that is a unique solution. And just as you were pointing out right at the start of the call, I think everybody went the same way you went and thought Linux is just easier. Let's go down that line. And now people are running into a number of different problems where in specific use cases, people are wanting to come back for these kind of applications.
Absolutely. And it's these people that still have the thin client mentality. So they don't have a sea of PCs, for instance. They still want to go with the ethos of thinning it down where possible, but maybe don't have an estate of PCs. They've maybe got just Windows embedded thin clients or something similar.
Now I'm conscious everybody's running out of time. So Simon, do you have a time tomorrow where we could just pick up and just plan the next steps?
I will have to come back to you on that one because I've got a couple of pendings, but I am very keen to progress. So I will see if I can move. Actually, yes, tomorrow afternoon I have a fairly clear day from the looks of things. So
what about we do? How about 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon?
That suits me perfectly.
Great. Let's pick up then, and we'll plan what are the various bits and pieces. And if you could shoot over, if you are able to share the customer name,
absolutely,
that would be really helpful. And then we can actually start prepping that up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one in question, we'll go through and have a look at the opportunities that we're working on and the ones that are perhaps more fringe ops, and we'll chuck a load at you. I mean, we're not. We're involved enough with our customers not to be scared that.
Good. Well, and I don't want to be anywhere near them anyway, because they'll need a complete stack, and ours is just one part of it, and I don't want to be involved in it.
Yeah, I think we're not one of these. We're not coy about this type of stuff, and certainly I don't get the impression that you are the type of company that would be getting involved.
Well, why would we? We want to have a good relationship with you.
For sure, I get that, and likewise. So yeah, we'll get some information put together. Cool. We'll come up with as many and diverse ones. Probably chuck them at you as we bump into them when we're going through our CRM, and see what you would suggest and how it might fit with your solution.
Yeah, and then we can tell you, look, I've had this experience with these kind of companies, this experience with these kind of companies. This is where we've got advantages. This is where we don't.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I'm sure there's things that we'll find out mutually as well.
Yes.
As a result of that, so yeah, I'm really excited about the potential here. So yeah, let's sort something out tomorrow. If you want to drop a meeting invitation over for 3,
perfect.
I'll come clued up, and we'll have a bit of a chew about some opportunity-based stuff.
Great.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Fantastic. I appreciate your time, chaps.
Not at all.
Thank you very much. I'll see you later.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.